listeners, this is Mark. I just want to say first and foremost, my name's Mark too. I'm Mark Hamilton.
Cool.
And first and foremost, I just want to say it's an honor to have you on our show.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, man, and we've got a lot of questions for you, man.
Cool.
A lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Who's the other guy?
I'm Steven Brown.
Hey, Steve.
Welcome to the
Nice
Express
to meet you,
Truth podcast.
Right on. Glad, super happy to be here.
Cheers, man. So is Noble back on now?
I see his name, but he can't see us. I don't know why.
I'm gonna have a go. Let me have a go.
Try to.
Yeah, try it.
I just want to apologize to the listeners that you have
technical difficulty. That's technology for you, man.
Oh God.
Is he in the call? It says he's in the call, isn't it?
Yeah, it says he's in the call.
Just text him. Or you,
Alright,
my phone.
Stephen, could
Yeah,
you
my
just?
phone.
Yeah, I just want to start with Mark and then.
Alright,
we're gonna work on getting Noble back into the call. But Mark, in the meantime,
Yeah.
could you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself before we actually get into this conversation?
Sure. I was I'm out here in the States. Was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, and spent most of my life up here in the Northwest of the United States, and then started playing computer games for a living in the mid-90s. I won a little computer tournament in the mid-90s, and went to Colorado and played games professionally for a few years. And then when that company decided to close up shop, I started training people in proprietary software for a number of years. So I traveled around the States and a few places outside the States, and taught people how to use somewhat difficult and most often boring software. But I got really good at breaking down concepts and turning them into easier to digest pieces. And did that for a bunch of years, and then finally, and during all that time, I was kind of into conspiracies, which was really fun. Everybody loves a good conspiracy. And then about the middle of 2014, I looked at this one, which was there was a German guy that had put out a video who was talking about how the plane flights, all the
So flat Earth, like you said, you didn't actually start flat Earth yourself, but
No.
You've made some videos and you're making quite a bit of noise on the internet. I mean, me personally, I've watched a lot of your videos.
Well, thanks.
And a lot of our listeners, they have an awful lot of questions, and like you just stated yourself,
Oh yeah.
We want to put it across
Sure.
in ways that the average man can understand.
Yeah.
So there's a few questions, Mark. And what we got to understand is, okay, at the minute now, everyone's saying that it's a big thing because B.O.B. recently come out and said he believes it's true, like it's a big thing. But the first question that...
Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Apologies. I've had major technical difficulties. Continue on, and I'll jump back in.
All right, no problem. All right, then, Mark. So
Sorry, yeah. So
question...
B.O.B. came out and said that the Earth was flat just about a month ago. In fact, a month ago today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The B.O.B. It's brought a lot of what it done then. It brought the urban community in on this debate, because what's happened now is a lot of the urban community and even a lot of our listeners have started to study this.
Yeah.
Now, the first question that I had myself when I started to hear about flat Earth was, there's a few different space programs around the world. It's not only one space program.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a space program. Is it in Russia? Or is it in China? Have a space program?
Yeah.
In saying that.
Yep.
So if those guys, if NASA are in fact telling us that the world is a globe and it's not true, wouldn't these other countries take the lid off and let the rest of the world know that the world was flat and that it wasn't true?
No.
Why would they stand with the USA?
Well, that's just it. Everybody's standing with everybody at the highest levels. Even before the space program, you got to remember the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed in 1959. That wasn't a treaty that was just designed by the United States. That was the then Soviet Union, the UK, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand. They were all down there, and they all decided And I know we'll get into the backstory of that later probably, but they all decided to seal off Antarctica in 1959, all these countries at the same time, and no corporation can ever go down there again, and it's not even up for review until 2041. So when it came to the space program, the United States and the Soviet Union, they were the ones that blueprinted how a space program should run. And everybody else, China, India, Japan, whoever else is out there that's doing their own version of the space program, they all went to NASA to blueprint it. Now, does that mean that all these programs, that's one of the biggest questions that comes up, does that mean that millions and millions of people are in on this secret? No. In fact, it's just the opposite. The wrench turners, the people that build the rockets and build the satellites and build all this other stuff, they don't have to be in on it. The only people that are privy to any of the information, and remember, it's really compartmentalized, would be the guys that control the telemetry data. And that is not the guys that build the rockets or even fire the rockets. It's the guys that monitor the rockets and the trajectory, the path of the rocket and where it goes. If anyone has any doubt of this, I did an interview, unfortunately it wasn't on air, it was off air, but I'll testify in a court of law to it, with a company out in California, one of the rivals of Virgin Galactic and SpaceX, called Interorbital. And I was on, the phone with one of their chief executive officers, and because I asked them, because my suspicion was that it's okay, if you're a rocket company or you're a satellite company, you're going to try to shoot a rocket up there. Well, it's not going to do much good. It's going to crash into something. And my suspicion was you're going to have to register, and NASA is going to have to control the whole thing. So I asked these guys, I say, well, so do you have to let NASA know when you're going to fire up a rocket? And they go, no, we don't. And I go, oh, that's really interesting. They go, no, it's not NASA. We have to file our thing with something called the ATS, the Atmospheric and Transportation Safety Bureau. And that is, and I go, that's interesting. They go, yeah, there's one of these bureaus in every country that has a space program, and you have to file this flight plan with them 6 to 9 months in advance, and you have to tell them every little detail about your rocket, about your payload, about your frequencies, everything you're going to use. And that gives people plenty of time. So what they're doing is you're going to shoot the rocket up. You could own a satellite company right now. You're going to build the satellite, but before you shoot that satellite up, you're going to call these guys and say, okay, this is what I'm going to shoot up. This is what my satellite's going to do and the frequency it's going to broadcast on. At that point, the ATS, they watch the rocket go up. They take over the telemetry. They take over the frequencies, and they send back all the data that you ever wanted to know. Or they don't. Sometimes they cause a failure every once in a while. But so the short answer to your question is no. The countries, yes, at the highest levels, the other countries know. But by that I mean 99.9% of the people in those programs, like NASA, don't know anything. My next door neighbor over in Boulder for a whole year, I used to watch his cat. His name was Wayne Ottinger, Ottinger. He was like the grease monkey, the garage mechanic for NASA. He knew all the astronauts from Mercury and Gemini and Apollo. His walls, he was career Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And there was no doubt in my mind, he knew nothing. He couldn't have been more proud of working for NASA. And the reason is, why would you ever tell a guy like this? He was like one of the chief engineers on these projects, and yet he didn't know anything. Because why would you? You don't the less people you know in this case, the better, and you can get away with it. So, sorry, it's my long-winded answer.
All right, Mark. So, I hear what you're saying there. That makes an awful lot of sense. But then you have there's another question that a lot of the listeners, along with myself, why would they, if the Earth was flat, what are they getting out of telling us that it's round? What difference does it actually make? What do they gain from this?
That's an excellent question, and I touched on it a little bit in the clues, but I'll break it down for you in 3 easy steps. Everyone, because I get that a lot. People say, why does it matter if it's Earth or if it's round or it's flat? I still have to go to my crappy job in the morning, and my wife still hates me, and my kids don't listen to me, and all this crap. It's like, who cares, right? And it's like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter until the day that it does. Meaning, people can say that all they want, but the second it is revealed, if all of a sudden, Neil deGrasse Tyson comes out and says, yeah, I'm sorry, it's flat. We did it for your own good, blah, 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 whatever line they're going to push. There are huge things that would happen within a week's time The first would be that, think about this, every educational institution from high school all the way through the PhD program, and especially in colleges. Think of every university everywhere, in every country in the world. If you have an astrophysics or an astronomy department, those departments are gone, literally gone overnight. Those people don't go into work the next day. Of course, NASA closes down, and it's the biggest class action lawsuit in history because all the major subcontractors would sue them into the ground, which means the stock market would have a really rough time. But also all the any major physical sciences that are still around, geology, archaeology, hydrology, even biology. You have to rework all those models. The education system goes into limbo all over the place. I mean, you're tearing up textbooks, you're rewriting stuff. Everybody that's a scientist has to scramble and rewrite things. That's just the education part. That part's obvious. But the second part is more of a spiritual thing, which is, think of the five major religions in this world that control 80% of the population. And by that I mean Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. All these groups have been looking for their version of, and I'm not picking on any one group here, the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. Basically, they've been looking for proof of God, something, proof of intelligent design. What if all of a sudden, overnight, all these groups got that proof, or at least a big chunk of it at the same time? Meaning, if we are living in a giant structure, if this is the firmament and we are in a dome, a snow globe, a Truman Show, then all of a sudden, the handprint of God, that's right over there. And all these groups, it would be a big boost to all religion, and there would be some backlash there, because they would go to science and say, okay, so you were wrong about the Earth. What else were you wrong about? Like evolution, like the Big Bang Theory, things like that. And meanwhile, the other side of the coin is you get a lot of people that would say, oh yeah, so religion was right about this. What else are you right about? And so it kind of gets into some risky territory, because there's a lot of responsibility there. You don't want to mess that up. And the third and final thing is that, and I also touched on this in the clues, which is that now the whole somebody looking over your shoulder thing is real. And I don't know if the Santa Claus argument will play that well in the UK, but maybe it will. Which is, nobody really cares about the naughty and nice list, right? Because we all know it's not real. It's not a real thing. Well, it's not real until all of a sudden you see Santa Claus, or what do you call him over there? You call him Saint Nick, or
we call him Santa Claus as well.
Okay. So let's say,
that's it. Yeah, Father Christmas as well.
There you go, Father Christmas. Let's say you find Father Christmas in your living room. Then the naughty and nice list becomes very real. And are you really going to do all those bad things that you did before? Is anyone going to go to war? If potentially, no, I'm not saying it. The divine is looking over your shoulder, but a lot of people will. And at that point, are you going to commit hate crimes? You're going to rob a bank? You're going to kidnap somebody? Down all the way. If people think I'm joking, the argument I gave was the stoplight one, and that is everybody's run a red light, including me. But all of a sudden, you get a camera installed on that red light, and you don't run it anymore. Why not? Oh, it's because there's a camera. I might get caught. And then my argument is, well, why were you thinking about running it in the first place? That's the power of somebody looking over your shoulder. Now, some people will say, well, it's Big Brother, and that's kind of sinister. And it's like, or is it kind of like a gentle parent that's been looking after you your entire life? To some degree. So those are the big reasons. So everything changes, but nothing changes until it happens. Meaning, while it's just a theory, while it's just a concept, nothing really changes. But the second it becomes real, it becomes a very, very big deal.
So where exactly? I'm gonna ask one more question before I bring in my co-host, and
Sure.
I'll come back to you.
Sure.
The Earth. Okay, so let's say the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
Where is the edge? I mean, surely some sailor must have sailed off the edge into space one day.
Yeah, there you go. No, I was hoping you'd be bringing in the old ones. Yeah, because that's the thing we've all heard. It's amazing how much it's equated to sailing off the edge. Well, we know it's not flat, because where were the oceans would fall off the edge, and sailboats and ships would fall off the edge. In this map, which makes it different from other maps that you've seen. But you can look this up online. It's easy. You know, the one we're currently using, although it's constantly being refined, is the azimuthal equidistant map, which is AZIMUTHAL equidistant map, which is the North Pole at the center. So if you take a globe and you put your hand on the North Pole and you flatten it, what happens is the North Pole becomes the center of the map, sort of like the center of a dinner plate. And then the outside, the outer rim of that dinner plate, that's the Antarctic shoreline. So the big difference is that Antarctica, and we are told that it's a continent sort of like Australia, 13 million square miles, and it's covered in ice and snow, really becomes the outer edge. And that fits actually really, really nicely because the Antarctic coastline is unique compared to all other coastlines in the world. The first part of it is it slopes up 200 feet tall, almost right off the beach, if you can find a beach, and it's all ice and snow. And then if you can find, some sort of way to get into the inland, without using a plane or a helicopter, the ground slopes up and plateaus out at about 12,000, 13,000 feet. And it's basically just this giant plateau. And so that holds all the oceans in quite nicely, actually. And if you're still not if you still haven't figured out how to envision it, the easiest way to look at what the map looks like is to look at the United Nations flag, which was designed in 1946 and divided into 33 segments, no accident there, with the North Pole at the center. And what's interesting about the UN flag, though, is there's no Antarctica on that flag. For whatever reason, they left that out, and they never did insert it. They could have put it in any time between 1946 and now, and they never updated it. And instead of the Antarctic surrounding this entire edge, it's two giant spiky Greco-Roman wreaths instead, and it's never addressed. You can look it up on Wiki. They don't talk about it. So there you go. Have I blown your mind yet?
Yeah. I've got a question though.
Yeah.
All right, it's flat. We've all been on planes. We've all flown to other countries.
Yeah.
So, for example, usually I think Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. Mark in the studio. From the UK to Australia, it's about 4 days worth of flying, isn't it?
Something like that.
Something like that. So, if the Earth was flat, wouldn't it be short? Wouldn't it make the trip quicker? Because wouldn't you be able to take a straight line from either the UK or the US straight to the destination?
Yeah, potentially.
If it was flat.
And that is one of our problems that we're still trying to figure out, because there's something about the AE map that we're currently using. There's something about the scale that is wrong. We're pretty sure the continents are laid out in the right place. And I'll flip that question back on you, which is, but what you're saying is that the flights, now from UK to, I'm sorry, where are you going, Australia? Yeah, that's a little different. North to south, it's a little different. South to south is very, very strange, and we're still in south to south. We're still trying to figure out. But I'd like to throw a couple things in there. One is, again, if anyone wants to have fun with this, book anything. You don't have to actually pay for it. Just book a flight from anywhere in South America to anywhere in Australia. And tell me where those flights go and why you can't find any nonstops. And by that I mean, you might be able to find one nonstop, but there will be 50 other flights that have multiple connections. You should just have to fly over south to south anyway, just over South Pacific or South Atlantic or the Indian Ocean. And those flights don't happen. They're always connecting through the weirdest parts. I mean, why would a flight from like say Rio to Sydney, why would it go through Los Angeles? In the States, or Dallas, or San Francisco? Why would it have to go through there? Or the Middle East? A lot of these flights are going due north, severe northeastern flights that then have to arc back down. But when you put them on the flat map, on the UN map, on the azimuthal map, they straighten out into these weird dog legs or just almost a straight line. But when I was building those, I thought that was strange, and people came back at me because that was Clue 7. It was called the long haul, and people came back and said, no, I found a nonstop. There was like 5 nonstops in the entire southern hemisphere. That didn't bother anybody apparently, but they kept, like it was this one, like Qantas 64. They kept sending it to me, and I going, all right, fine, I will figure out what's going on down there. So I started looking, and I realized, because I was trying to track these flights, because I figured, okay, they're going to go over the ocean, and I'll be able to track them. And the planes would disappear. I'd go get a cup of coffee, and I'd come back, and the flights were gone. They weren't on the radar anymore, on the graphic. And remember, this is the GPS system. This is the United States Department of Defense military system that tracks all the planes in the world. It was designed in 1995. Supposedly it has 36 overlapping satellites and tracks everything. So all these flights started disappearing, and basically what I started seeing is if you take any flight, it doesn't matter if it's in the north or the south, if there isn't an island close by, those flights will disappear. They will go, in fact, you look at the latitude and longitude of these flights, and they will change from whatever the number is to something called estimated mode or approximate mode. It's going to be one of those two things, which basically says they have no idea where those planes are. And that's not possible because it's a DoD GPS system. It stands for Global Positioning System, not land-based system or partial positioning system. And that was a big flag because that's exactly what I would do if I was going to try to hide something because the routes are wrong. The routes don't make any sense, and so these planes have to fly routes that kind of cheat, but they can't tell people what those routes are. So what they do is they just have the planes blink out. They just disappear off the map, and then you might be able to see the graphic, but the graphic doesn't mean anything because if you click on that graphic, the plane is still going to say, I have no idea where this plane is. And then all of a sudden the plane will pop back up the latitude and longitude just about an hour before landing, which is, when they're heading on the way back down. And this was a big thing for me and for a lot of people, because everyone knows, this is a big system and it's not being tracked. So yeah, the plane's a big mystery right now, but it's gotten a lot of people sucked in.
Okay. It's very interesting to know.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, all right, this whole debate within itself is very interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously the powers of be have gone to great lengths to deceive the people of the truth. Would it really be that bad if people knew the truth?
It wouldn't, but at the same time, because I still think they could spin it in a golden age type of way, which is if you eventually think of it this way: when they knew, because even the powers that be, I don't think knew for sure until 1956, and that was during Operation Deep Freeze down in Antarctica, led by the Soviet Union and the United States, more specifically Admiral Richard E. Byrd. And you can look him up online. And I think that even the powers that be didn't know for sure, because he came on television in 1954 on an American station and said that, and that footage is out there on YouTube. You can watch it. And I also put a snippet of in my clues, which said that he came on and said, look, the Antarctica is just made out of money waiting for it to be taken. It's got a mountain range made out of coal, oil, minerals, uranium, you name it. It's all there. And then that all changed. So when they made the decision, whatever happened scared them so bad. I mean, yeah, think of it this way. If you all of a sudden realized you were in a structure, you were in a building, a machine, no different than the Truman Show, that's a big power thing. And telling the people, there's a problem, the one big problem from the authority standpoint, and by that I mean the governments, the super rich and the royals, is that it's tough to be the ultimate power when you're standing below a structure that you had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? So if so, can you really say you're the ultimate authority when you're not? Because people are going to say, you know what? Yeah, you guys are talking some pretty good stuff, but I'm going to wait till the builders come back. I'm not even going to listen to you guys. It's like at that point they're not going to risk it. You still might be able to turn it into something else, but something good or something bad, depending on how you're going to turn it. But it's a tough call. What I do know about the authority is they don't take chances. So even if there was a 10% chance that the population might turn against them, they're not going to do it. They're just going to do, the typical thing, which is, you know what, we're going to hold on to this for as long as we can, spend the money, seal off the Antarctic, control space, control the skies. And they did a pretty good job, and it held out for just about 60 years. But now it looks like it's starting to unravel, mostly because of advanced camera technology, high-speed internet, social networking, all those things.
Okay.
Noble.
It's Noble there.
Peace.
Noble, let's bring you in, man. Let's bring you in. I know you got some questions.
Definitely. Well, just on what you brought out, again, some very interesting and some thought-provoking information.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding you've touched on Truman Show a few times.
Yeah.
Now, and also the concept of creationism. looking at obviously the Truman Show itself, and obviously the concept behind it, and ultimately it was the producer was the God figure.
Yeah.
So looking at obviously what you're presenting, in essence, is this proof that there is a creator, or are we in essence art imitating life and life imitating art, and this is actually a creation by man?
Well, no, not by man. Maybe some mankind, a humanoid race, possibly. But yeah, it's going to be one of two things, because what you're kind of asking is like who could have built this thing, and what was the purpose? In the Truman Show, it was an entertainment purpose. Obviously it was a Hollywood production. If anyone hasn't watched the 1998 Jim Carrey movie, the premise there is that you take a man and you build a Hollywood soundstage that's big enough that you can simulate a town on the seaside, and if someone is born into that, can you fool them? And that is actually, it was expressed very elegantly in the movie, which was, we accept the world that is presented to us. So why? Because, and I stated that in one of my recent videos, is look, children don't believe in lies. When we're growing up, we take everything as truth. So is it proof of the creator? It's proof of, at the very least, that it was created. Now, I don't want to get into the Russian stacking doll argument necessarily, but you can go one of two ways, and really only one of two ways, and that is, at the very least, it was created by an advanced civilization, and in the biggest sense, it was created by God. And then the lines start to blur. I mean, is God an advanced being? Yes, of course. But did God build this personally, or did God subcontract it out? You don't know for sure, but either way, it's going to be really tough to be an atheist if this thing comes to light, because at that point, the whole spinning ball flying through, the point about that science puts at, that we're just this tiny speck of dust going through this infinite universe, that goes out the window. Everything becomes much more intimate. And the question we would do, let's say it was an advanced race. Let's say a giant alien ship shows up. And at that point, are they even aliens anymore? Or are they just, a builder that's living outside of this? But let's say a giant ship shows up. What's one of the first questions we're going to ask them? It's like, do you know anything about the creator? Even, we'll say, okay, fine, you built this place, but who built you? That's one of the first things we're going to throw at them. So, try.
Sounds a bit like that film. What's that film?
Prometheus.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very similar. And again, there is predictive programming out there, to be sure. I think I don't think this thing was supposed to be hidden forever. I think we were naturally supposed to find it at a certain point in time, maybe the 1970s, maybe the 1980s. But the government found it first, and when they did, they decided to extend it longer than it probably should have. I think we were naturally supposed to find it, and now they're trying to control how it's going to be released. Because I believe in the 100th monkey effect, which is, if enough people figure this out, then the population is going to kind of figure it out en masse. And when that happens, then the teacher comes back in the room, so to speak. And then, then at that point, they have to present themselves, because that's part of one of the big things about this place is we're supposed to be acting naturally. And if the moon is reflecting some of the sun's rays, it should be neutral at the most. It should never be colder. And we're seeing degree things over here, at least on the Fahrenheit side, of up to 12 degrees. Which is, how does that happen? No one's going to tell me that the light is actually being transmuted from the moon, that you're getting heat radiation from the sun, it's bouncing off and it's turning into a refrigerated light system, and you can actually chill vegetables with it. That doesn't happen. I'd like to see a physicist try to explain that. So anyway, the point of the moon. Oh, as far as the shape of the moon and what you're seeing as displays, because if you have a friend on one side that's saying he could see the moon in a certain way, but a friend on the other side that sees it in a different way, that's easy from a display standpoint. We've been doing that in software for the last 15 years or so. It's called instancing, which is you can display things based on region. Imagine if you were in a planetarium with your buddies, and I don't know if you have planetariums over there, and he's on one side and you're on the other. and you're talking to each other via cell phone, and he says, "Oh, hey, I'm looking at the belt of Orion," and you say, "Oh yeah, I'm looking at the belt of Orion too," and he goes, "Yeah, but mine's got a green star in the middle of it," and he goes, and you say, "Oh no, mine's got a red star in the middle of it." Well, you both could be right, because in instancing you can display things based on where you are. So you guys both think you're seeing the exact same belt of Orion, but in reality you're looking at completely different belts of Orion, just slightly altered for your perspective. So anyway, and you can see this in games all day long. World of Warcraft does that every freaking day, and it's a cheat, but it's a good cheat.
So in essence, then, what you're saying is that the Big Dipper, etc., the North Star are holograms. They're not actually where the astronomers are saying they are.
Well,
Because
yeah.
obviously we can.
Yeah, you're right. There's something up there. But yeah, are they three-dimensional light sources? Maybe. There's some people that, from the religious side that have suggested they're actually angels. Which is like, okay. I mean, who am I to say it's not? But yeah, they're not. They're definitely not planets. They're not light years away. They're not even light minutes away. They're right here with us. It's no different. And some people will say, are you killing astrology? No, I am not. Astrology is based on the stars moving through the sky like a big clock system. And that's what, that doesn't change. They don't have to be millions of light years away to have meaning. They're all part of an intimate system that was designed just for you.
I've got a question. All
right, what do you got?
Before you go. So, all right. With the Earth being flat, are we still moving? Are we still moving slowly?
No.
Like they say that we're not.
No, we're not moving at all. As a matter of fact, because that's one of the big arguments that we have on our side, which is people, if you believe in the globe, then the globe is spinning at about 1,000 miles an hour. I don't know what the kilometer equivalent is at the equator. And it's moving around the sun at about 60 times that speed, and then the solar system is moving through the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour, and so on and so on. No, this thing is not moving at all. If you want an argument for it, and that is, I'll give you just one, which is the oceans. Which is, think about it this way. Yeah, you take a ball and you put it in a vacuum of space. Let's say there's no gravity around except for that ball. Could you cover it with water and spread it like the oceans, and it would distribute uniformly? Yeah, I'll buy that. That the oceans could sit on that ball because of gravity, because gravity is one of their big arguments from science. But here's the problem. The oceans sit there just fine until you move that ball. Meaning, as soon as you start spinning it like a merry-go-round, that water's going to want to move. And a lot of water is going to want to move into a lot of different places. And the big one is going to be around the equator. You can't tell me the oceans are going to still be uniform at the north and the south of a globe if it's spinning at that rate. And people say, well, no, gravity's counteracting the centrifugal force. It's like, not to that degree. Gravity is water moves very easily. If you have any doubt, take a hard left or right turn holding a cup of coffee in your hands and tell me that water doesn't move easily. It moves very easily. So no, this particular disk, it is not moving, it is not spinning, it is not doing anything. It could be just a snow globe sitting on somebody's desk, for as far as we know, but we can't detect any motion.
That's very true, actually. That's very
crazy.
true. That's like the men. I think
It's
there
like
was a
Men in
scene.
Black.
There was a scene like that in Men in Black. I think.
There's a few scenes. The first one, it ends. Our
Yeah.
whole galaxy was just a marble that we were playing.
Yeah,
with.
there you
And
go.
I think it was the second or the third one. We were living inside an alien's locker. That was the whole Earth.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's a great scene. I love the end of that movie. And of course, they have the great beginning scene, or fairly close to the beginning, where Tommy Lee Jones says, 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And then it changed. And I don't think it just changed because of mankind. I think it had help, because think of most of our interesting history has been in the last 500 years. So having whoever built this place kind of help that along was great, because it buys them time. And look at what we've accomplished in the last 500 years. That none of that would have been the same had we known Had we known there was a barrier out there, that there was a fence, that's all. Again, that's the big thing. We would have cared about. Human beings do not like confinement. That's why we don't like jail. If we find out there's a fence, doesn't matter how comfortable this place is, that's all we would care about. We would just be constantly trying to figure out everything that had to do with the fence. Yeah.
So, this is it's mind-blowing stuff.
It is, man.
It's mind-blowing
I'm
stuff.
questioning everything.
Hey, you asked me to come on.
So what about the dinosaurs? Did they really exist?
I think they do. This is just my personal opinion. I think they did. I think they were just an earlier version of this place. And I think the carbon dating system is just way off. We think it's one continuous timeline, and we deal with stuff in tens of millions and hundreds of millions of years. But what if it's not? What if it's the opposite? Which is, you can create a civilization, you can let them thrive and do whatever, and then either the civilization destroys themselves, or they move on, or they get to go to another place. Who knows? And then you shake the thing up like an etch-a-sketch and rearrange some stuff. If anyone has any doubt of that, look at all the previous evidence of previous civilizations we have, and not just Stonehenge and the pyramids, but the stuff we don't see, like the underwater cities off of Japan or off of India, or the molten cities, with the radioactive glass that we found. There's all sorts of fun little things. So we're not the first people to use this, because you wouldn't want to design it just for one civilization. That's a waste. So when it comes to the dinosaurs, yeah, they were probably an early species that were. I know some people says no, the dinosaurs were all fake. I'm going, I don't know. I think if you're going to play around with life forms, why not play around with them? And then they pass on. And I still think that a few of them, especially the water ones, maybe even have survived. Some of that, which of course plays into the carbon dating system, which is how could, like, the Loch Ness monster, which I do believe in, believe it or not, I think it's a plesiosaur. And the question is, though, why would a plesiosaur still be around after another 100 million years after they supposedly extinct, unless the carbon dating system is off?
Before you, I know Stephen wants to ask a question, but
it was just a comment,
Okay. Go on.
Shoot.
Just a quick comment. No, it's kind of reminding me of you talking about Men in Black. It kind of reminds me of the Matrix.
Yeah.
We're living in a facade.
Yeah.
Like the world we know is not real.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The question I have is just like the guys in Polythium. What was it?
Elysium?
Polythium. Yeah. All right. The question I have is, suppose this is just one big chessboard, then somewhere.
Yeah.
Suppose we are just. Why hasn't the creator or the creators show them? Like, the question I'm asking, why would they let this game keep going? Wouldn't they show themselves like, I'm your god, kind of thing?
Maybe we're not ready though.
Well, that's just it. I think it's way more. I think every civilization, this is just, again, my personal opinion, but I believe that every civilization has a novelty of creativity, meaning every civilization would create their own paintings, their own sculptures, their own music. And if it was me, if I was building a place like this, I'd see what they could do. Again, look what we've done in the last 500 years. We've created so much beauty and so much wonderfulness. Now, yeah, we've of course done some horrible, awful things to our people and the environment, but we've also created some. We're an interesting species at the very least. So why not let us go for a while until we get to the point where, okay, these guys are probably just going to end up blowing each other up. So that's when you'd step in. You'd step in when things are getting pretty grim, and so because all gods know, if you step in at the beginning, then people are just going to worship you, and there's going to be lots of churches, and that's kind of boring. It means it's. I hate to use the Matrix thing, but it does seem to be about choice and free will. It's more interesting to see what the population will do when left to their own devices. And so far, we're a weird mix of both good and bad.
Well, I mean, in the time that we're living in now, I mean, if I happen to be the creator then of a place like this, like you said, we're very exciting species. All life as we know it could be like a day to whoever created this thing.
Exactly.
At the same time, with all what's going on now, if the creator could see, like, with, like, the attacks and the wars and different things like that. I think now would be a good time to step in.
To intervene.
Yeah, to step
But
in.
you never know. This could be this whole game we call life. It could be a glorified episode of Big Brother. You never know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, in fact, South Park, the animated show over here in the States, they did an episode which was weird. They did it a couple of years ago called the episode was called Earth Cancelled, which was that they revealed that Earth was actually just this big reality show and the ratings weren't going very well, so they were going to cancel it. And it's like, yeah, I could see that because Earth is I will say this, we have our faults, but we're pretty entertaining.
Definitely.
Very entertaining. So, Noble, what do you feel like at this point? How do you feel?
Noble.
Is he gone again?
I don't know. Does he even know he's gone?
God, no, I know Noble's got a lot of questions.
What's going on, man?
So Mark, tell me something else. How deep is this thing? How many miles down does this thing go?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's an excellent question because when people say, well, how deep is that? I go, really? How deep is the Earth? And you say, well, it's X number of miles deep, but if you believe in the globe model, it's 4,000 miles to the center. And I go, really? That's great. So how far down did you dig to find that out? And I come back. I go, did you dig down 2,000? Did you dig down 1,000? How about 100? And you finally, you look up in the records, and the deepest hole we've ever dug is 8 miles. That's it. 4,000 miles to the center, and yet you will see the pictures that are in every school book, and they show this cross-section of the Earth where you have a red band and an orange band and yellow and white, and it shows you exactly the layout and how thick everything is. And the scientists will come back and say, oh yeah, well, we did this with seismic waves. We use ground-penetrating radar, and we can tell what's down there. I was like, really, can you? Because that sounds to me like you're just kind of knocking on the side of a coconut and trying to tell me what's inside it. And it's like, until you actually go in there, what do you really know? So as far as how thick this thing is, after 8 miles, I don't know. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say that there were subterranean caverns down there that could hold, more civilizations, maybe even the survivors of the previous versions of this. Because remember, most of our population, 95% at least, lives in a narrow band of elevation. And we live from about 0 to 5,000 feet. That's pretty thin. That's barely even a mile high. And so if you even had a cavern, a small area down there that was even, 10 miles high, you could put all sorts of fun stuff in there. So how thick? Doesn't have to be very. I would say at least a couple 100 miles thick, but not 4,000. That'd be a waste of space. Other people have said, well, maybe it's it's multifaceted, meaning there's another world on the flip side of this that's facing the other direction. It's like, yeah, maybe, I suppose, but it doesn't have to be very much. I know that.
So what would you want to see happen? Like, how would you want people to know this? Would you want this secret to come out, or what would you actually want personally yourself?
Oh yeah, no, that's I think you're the first person that's ever asked me that. What would I want to see happen now? What I'm trying to do, which is get the word out, because if people know, and I do think people should know now, I think we could turn this around into potentially a new golden age, which is we all end up working together. And we're all part of the same family, the same community. I wasn't kidding when I said that. Really, would there be any more wars if we knew we're all in the same house? That we're all, we look different, we have different skin color and talk different languages and everything. But do those differences mean anything when you realize you're on the same life raft, or whatever you want to call this? So people, I think, would work together, and I think that we could pull us back from whatever the dire situation we are in right now. So I'm trying to see, look at the glass half full, which is we have a chance to become way better than we are, or way better than we've been. I think with a common goal, we can do great things. I think the human race, when faced with a common goal, has the potential for which is almost unlimited. But when we don't, that's the flip side of us. when we don't have that common goal, we turn against each other almost immediately. And just because we've got so much energy and so much enthusiasm and so much drive that we don't know what to do with it if we don't have a common goal. So it's all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm going to attack my neighbor or that country, or let's steal these resources, or take your pick. That all goes away if this becomes true, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Okay, so as more people open up to the idea of the Earth being flat,
Yeah.
and more people get behind the concept, do you not feel like the government, the powers that be, whoever's in charge, do you not feel they're going to try and counteract this so-called movement?
They are trying
to further hide the truth.
Yeah. They've been trying. The first thing and everything they've been doing, I predicted, because there's only so many moves. If you play chess at all, you get to that point, and where someone says, "Oh, I'm going to take you out in 6 moves." Right, and one of those things. There's only so many moves you can make in a situation like this. The first thing they did was they started releasing more and more space stories. Anything related to space, moon anniversary related. Let's talk about whatever's on Mars and whatever's on Saturn. Oh, here's a picture of Pluto, and here's an asteroid that looks like a skull, and here's one that looks like a jack-o'-lantern, and whatever. Every one of these stories, it doesn't matter if you believe them or even if you give them that much attention or even if you read the article. It's all about reinforcing the same thing, and that is whether or not you believe in the face on Mars, you're thinking about it from a globe. So, face on Mars is interesting from a globe. Saturn, globe. Pluto, globe, and so on and so on. That's the first thing you would do. The second thing you do is you try to go after it publicly if you want to take that risk, which is why the B.O.B. thing happening with Neil deGrasse Tyson was very, very interesting. B.O.B., the Grammy-nominated rapper, comes out, makes the song, distributes it free on the internet, calls out Neil deGrasse Tyson, the most public physicist in the world. Not necessarily the best physicist, but definitely the most camera-ready. And Neil deGrasse Tyson could have ignored it, could have completely just, not even said anything. But no, he has to get into a rap battle with him and then go on television and drop the mic, after a little speech, which, caught the attention of every media thing, at least over in the States, and I'm sure a few on your side as well. And then after that, if you really want to start getting serious against it, you might try to turn it into a threat. Neil deGrasse Tyson, hinted in his television thing that he considers it a dangerous aspect against civilization. You try to make it a little more sinister, which means eventually I would become the bad guy, which hopefully that doesn't happen because I don't think I'd be a good bad guy, but you never know. And that's how you would go against this. I mean, yeah, do I think that of course you can approach some of the flat earth people directly, and threaten them, offer them the carrot and the stick and see if they respond. To date, we haven't had that many, as far as I know, that's happened to. So they're playing it pretty carefully at this point. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the future, but do I think I'm in danger? Not necessarily.
Don't you worry a little bit, Mark, to know that a truth that the powers that be are hiding at this major level. I mean, you've made quite a few videos. You've got quite a lot of views. I mean, you're coming onto shows like this, and
yeah,
don't you worry a little bit that someone somewhere might turn up and say, Mark, you might want to keep quiet on this subject, or this might. I mean,
yeah.
You see films like The Matrix with those guys in the suit.
Yeah, the agents. Yeah, and I joked many times about saying, well, the guys with the suits and the sunglasses haven't showed up my door yet. But it's a little different. I never married and never had kids, so and for me this message was a message of hope more than anything. This wasn't like your usual conspiracy, the garden variety stuff that's out there. This was way more important to me because it gives people, in my opinion, it gives people a sense of a higher purpose, of hope, of that it's not just about your the daily grind and going to your crappy job and being in a relationship you don't want to be in. It's about becoming better as the human race. And so I've stated in several different shows, look, I'm the wrong guy to come at and try to bribe or threaten, because this message is bigger than me. So what happens to me is inconsequential. This thing's going to move forward, and has been. I joked with some of my friends. I go, several of us could die in a bus crash tomorrow, and this thing's going to still go. So. Yeah, no. So I don't lose any sleep over it. Now, of course, at the same time, if I actually do get a visit at my door, it's not going to surprise me at all. But they've waited, a long time. It's been a year now, and I haven't even gotten a threatening phone call.
Okay.
Excellent.
So, you're back,
Hey.
Noble. Let me ask. I'm going to ask one more question before I bring Noble in.
All right.
So, I know you see our friend over here, Richard Branson. I know he's back and forth, but I know you see Richard Branson putting together this whole Virgin Galactic package. And I mean, you have to put down the small amount of $250,000.
Is that all?
That guarantees you a seat when he gets this technology right.
Yeah.
Now, what the question I'm saying to you is, I mean, you've got people like Justin Bieber, Leonardo DiCaprio, who have already made payments to get a seat on this Virgin Galactic when he does. Now, when that ship takes off, if it ever takes off, is that the day that everything changes as we know it?
No, this thing will happen before that ship ever goes anywhere. They've delayed the private space program. One of the reasons why NASA was even created was to delay any private space programs that are out there, because there were companies bigger than and earlier than SpaceX and Virgin Galactic and Interorbital and all those guys. The major military subcontractors, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, those guys, Airbus to a lesser degree. All these guys could have gotten into it, and they didn't. There have been so many delays that look at for example, ask yourself this: why is the space shuttle program? Why was that shut down? The American Space Shuttle program, why not turn that over to private enterprise? Why is the Orion program, the Mars program, why has that been kicked down the road another few years? They're not even going to do a human trial on it till 2021. I guarantee if we made it that far, they would just kick it down the road again. No one's going anywhere. It's just been delay after delay. Why are there no moon bases? Where is the future that we were promised in the 1960s, of jets and cars and everybody can fly everywhere? Those things never happened. Every other technology seemed to have blossomed and got faster and faster and better, but the aerospace industry didn't go anywhere. You're telling me that really after the Americans go to the moon, that everybody else gives up? Nobody bothers to put a man on the moon, and 43 years later, nobody's doing anything? So no, the private space programs, they're not going anywhere. They're going to delay. They're going to have accidents. And payments are going to be made, but people forget that Pan Am, right after the men went to the moon, Pan Am was already selling advanced tickets to go up there. That they were going to do it. They were going to get involved. And this thing has been delayed. I mean, the private sector has been kept out of the loop for generations now, 2 generations. So nobody's doing anything. By the way, Leonardo DiCaprio, you want to have fun? I don't know if you caught that video. Look up, the morning after. Here's a little tidbit for you, for your listeners. The morning after Neil deGrasse Tyson dropped the mic on BOB, Neil DiCaprio was at the Vatican talking to the Pope about climate change, and he happens to bring up, he was giving him a book and shows him this book, and remember, he's only got 15 minutes with him, so why waste time, right? And he's going, oh yeah, by the way, this is a picture of a painting by Hieronymus Bosch that was hanging over my crib, and it depicts the Earth when it was flat. And he goes, to me, it represents the promise of the future and enlightenment. Why would he say this? Why? That's on camera. You can look it up on YouTube. It's incredible. And that was that. Think that's a coincidence? That happened the morning or the day after the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing? Not a chance. No, they're getting ready for something, and we're trying to figure out what. Something that's tied to this.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Noble.
So based, you almost answered the question I was going to ask. So based upon what you've said, in essence, Neil Armstrong and the other Apollo missions were not successful in penetrating the Van and space belt and
Yeah.
going up to other planets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If that was your question. Well, I go even one step further. The Van Allen radiation plane. What they do is they go on a steep ascent, and then they dive real fast. And when you dive, you can simulate anti-gravity for a while. And what they've done is they made a mock-up of the interior of the International Space Station inside one of these planes. And then they just film it, and they have a light behind them so that they can tell the astronauts know when the anti-gravity is on and when it's not. So they can throw objects around and float and do their stuff. And when the light goes off, they can't do those things. And it's worked very well for them, but it's not perfect because there's a couple things that you can detect. One is because the plane, you can't still to this day you can't tell where turbulence is. The plane hits these bumps, but there are no bumps in space like that, so they got to be ready for those. And the other thing is to make sure the bumps aren't as glaringly obvious. What they've done is that, and again, look up this if you get a chance. Look up on YouTube ISS hoax, but look up permed hair, which is for whatever reason they decided to perm the women's hair so that it didn't float around so much. So if there were any shifts in the structure, it wouldn't be obvious because women, you can tell if a woman's head moves, the hair follows. But the perm is so bad that they look like the Bride of Frankenstein. It's horrible. And I watched this as going from a production standpoint. I was going, look, guys, that's not what you want to do. Put a hat on them, tie their hair back, do anything. Don't do that. So yeah, everything that you see as far as the space footage is faked. And if you think I'm kidding, again, here's one quick thing you want to look up because I don't know how much time we have, but which is. Look up the pictures of the Earth from space, and I mean the full Earth pictures from the Earth from space. There was only one taken from 1972 until July of 2015. And then we know this because the White House and Obama and DeGrasse Tyson and NASA, they were the ones that did the press release on it and said, oh yeah, by the way, here's the second shot we took of Earth in 43 years. It's what took you so long? That's 2 generations. No satellite, no telescope, nothing up there is going to take a picture of the Earth. It's because they didn't want to deal with people trying to dissect it.
But how do these satellites stay up and hobble? They've got this Hubble telescope. How is that in sky?
Okay, the answer I'm giving people nowadays is, and don't take it the wrong way, which is because I'm not trying to insult your intelligence in any way, shape, or form, is who told you there were satellites up there? The same people that told you that the Americans went to the moon? Those guys? Because satellites, there's supposedly between 3,000 and 20,000 satellites up there. And there's a couple things about those satellites which are really unusual. One is they never take pictures of each other. 2, the ISS space station apparently never goes by them and snaps a shot while they're near them. And 3, all the meteor showers that we see, I don't know how many there are a year, 3, 4, 5, whatever. They always say, the Perseus meteor shower, whatever the meteor shower is. These meteor showers come from outer space, and they come into the atmosphere, and there's a lot of them. And no satellites ever get damaged. They don't ever get knocked out. In fact, no one even seems concerned that all these rocks are flying through the atmosphere. And it's like, look, there's 20,000 satellites up there. You'd be losing. It's a shooting gallery at that point. Why? And satellites would knock into other satellites. It'd be a mess, and nobody cares. So now, does that mean when you look up in the sky? Because we've all looked up in the sky on a dark night, lying on your back, staring up there, but you're seeing lights. Yeah, you are. But you want to have fun, grab a pair of night vision binoculars and look up with those and then look at these satellites. There's a lot more things up there, and I don't know what they are, but I've been looking for 5 years, and they're not satellites, and they're not ours. They move in ways that satellites don't move. Are there lights traveling across the sky? Yes, they are. Do I have any idea what those things are? No, but they're not satellites.
So what would you say they are? Because I was just going to get into that then. So
based upon
what you can see, what would you...
I think they are the previous versions of us. I think they are the older civilizations. I think they're using, you want to call them UFOs, ETs, spaceships, whatever. They have obviously got control of the unified field engines, which you'd need to control these suckers. They're flying way above commercial traffic. They run silently and way faster and can do maneuvers. There's no limit to their maneuvers. But I think when a civilization reaches a certain point, they are they move away. They aren't allowed to coexist with the civilization that's on the ground, but they're still around. So they're up there doing their thing, and there's some days. I mean, it looks like rush hour up there. There's so many things flying up there, but I don't think they're allowed to interact with us. I can speculate and say that, are they the janitors? Are they the superintendents? Are they part of the maintenance team? We don't know, but they obviously have rules to follow, just like we do. Why the argument is, well, why hasn't spaceship shown up on landed near Parliament and come to visit? Well, because if they do, they change everything. There's too many questions that people would ask. You can't land in the middle of a town and come out and take pictures, shake hands, sign a few autographs, and leave, because no one's going to forget it. That's all people will talk about forever. Is who were these guys? It's always about the questions. So, but are they up there? Yeah, you bet they are. They've been up there for a long, long time, since the beginning.
Yeah.
If anyone has any doubts, look up the very underrated, what I consider the greatest sighting of all time, which is the 1561 Nuremberg event, where two giant, fleets of ships park over Nuremberg and start fighting for an hour. And then finally a third faction shows up and they clear out. But, an hour is a long time, to where the sketch artists made a whole, they did a full-blown illustration for their newspaper, and it was very well done. These guys have been here since the beginning, and I have no doubt that, one day we will probably be them.
Well, there's potentially been some form of interaction, because there's a place called Roswell, isn't there, in America, where that
interaction on a limited basis. I mean, yeah, it's no different than let's put this. I'll use a hunting reference. Yeah, you can go hunt. You can maybe a hunting reference isn't so good. But you could go hunt and go into the woods and do things every once in a while, but you can't lead an army into the woods and just start wiping things out. So if you want to abduct somebody from a rowboat in the middle of nowhere, or somebody that's camping, you want to go interact with those guys, that's fine. You can't leave their entire memory intact, and you can't wipe out a town, and you can't alter the civilization to where it makes such a huge ripple that their thought processes and their religious beliefs and their spirituality gets changed. But yeah, there's all sorts of people that. The Roswell thing was great just because it was so typical, and it was so us, and that was, the army guy, because this was right after World War II, and some of these guys didn't want the war to end. And this guy was like, right on, I'm going to be famous. And so, he immediately calls the papers, and he goes on and says, oh yeah, we got a flying saucer. And then the next day, his commanders have him retract the whole thing. So yeah, that's why I think that the Roswell thing was real, because it fits what we would do. It's what anyone would do. It's like, I'm going to be famous. And then it's like, nope, now you're going to look dumb because you're going to hold a weather balloon up and say that's what you saw.
So Mark,
Yeah.
where can people find your stuff and?
Oh yeah. It's easy to find. In fact, everything's been changing recently. But the main website is, believe it or not, it's not called Flat Earth. It's called enclosedworld.com. You can just type in any search engine anywhere. You can type in Flat Earth Clues. It'll take you to YouTube. My YouTube channel is Mark K. Sargent, but you don't have to remember that. Flat Earth Clues is generally what I'm known for. And as of a couple days ago, I now have apps for both Macintosh. I'm sorry, wow, that's an old name. iPhone and Android.
old school.
Yeah, I know, it dates me, doesn't it? For both iPhone and Android, you just go to either iTunes or Google Play and type in Flat Earth Clues, and there's an app. And I'm working on other things, but that's it. But again, go have fun. Just go into YouTube and just type in Flat Earth, and forget about my stuff. There's a lot of people's stuff out there. Just so much material, and if you give it, I know, look, everyone laughs at it at first. Everybody looks at it and says, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. I did for months, but if you can give it even a couple minutes, you're not going to be sleeping for a few days.
So, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Coming off the subject just slightly a little bit, going back to your introduction,
Yeah.
you said that you was a video game programmer.
Yeah.
Is there any games that we may know that you was involved in?
No, probably not because it was in the 90s, late 90s. I mean, I can tell you the company I worked for. It was called Productions. They were they started out as a small Macintosh developer for a Japanese development team out of Tokyo called Little Wing, and they did like Crystal Caliburn Pinball and Looney Labyrinth Pinball, and then did like Alley 19 Bowling and Shadow Wraith and Souls in the System, and those were all fun little games which we ported over to the PC. But it was fun because we got to meet. That was a great time to be in the video game industry because everyone was new. Nobody knew what they were doing. Like you've heard of the game Halo? Yeah. Halo before those guys I knew before that was Bungie and they were out of Chicago and they were a Macintosh developer. They had done a little game called Marathon. I remember talking to those guys like, "Oh yeah, what are you working on?" I was like, "Oh, we're working on this Halo thing. We're never gonna finish it." It's like, and then Microsoft shows up at their door and says, "Hey, by the way, we'll give you a dump truck full of money if you finish that game." And the rest is history. So good for them. That was
There must be millionaires now, innit?
Oh yeah. Some of those guys did very very well with that. So you're very very happy for them. I think they're rebranded now and they did something else. But that's what all video game people dream is that some big company comes in and like Sony or Microsoft and does something. But I was happy for them.
Yeah, man. So anything you guys want to add? Noble, Stephen?
Well, I'm just
Earthquakes is a real interesting thing.
The what?
How does that work? Earthquakes?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's part of the tectonics. It's part of the tectonic system. But if you're asking me if it's natural or if it's mechanical, I still say it's mechanical. I mean, some people in the flat Earth community get mad at me because I don't leave anything to be organic. Because I say, look, everything's part of the same machine. The jet stream up above, the underwater conveyor system in the oceans, even the magma system. And my argument is like, look, if you're building a terrarium for your lizard, are you going to leave anything to chance with this thing? The light bulb in the corner is yours. The glass cage is yours. The sand and the dirt on the ground is yours. Everything is going to be controlled by you. You're not going to leave anything to chance because you care for that lizard. You do not want anything to happen to it. So when people say, oh, the magma system has to be organic, I'm going, yeah, that's a great idea until a super volcano goes off. And then you come back one morning and the whole thing's wrecked. So you'd want to make sure everything was monitored. Are you going to allow some earthquakes to happen? Yes. The occasional tidal wave, sure. The occasional volcano, sure. But you're not going to let anything, everything is controlled by the Almighty. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Stephen, anything you want to add before we let Mark go?
I just want to thank him for his time and opening my eyes further. Now I'm scratching my head and questioning everything I've ever learned in life, but
well, no, I mean it's not. There's still some things we've all learned. This one, I think we were always supposed to learn, though. It was something we knew in the past, and I think we're very soon going to be knowing it again. And this time, it's going to be changes to something better.
Hopefully.
Definitely.
So Mark,
my last question. sorry.
No problem, Noble. Go on.
No problem. My very last question is ultimately, what is your, what do you see this? Well, it's two questions. Firstly, what would you estimate the population percentage-wise who are sort of awakening to the flat Earth model versus what has been historically taught?
Got it. Oh, the first question, the population, it's got to be in the millions at this point because there's so many people that are in the closet about it. There's a lot of people that know it, that have heard about it, but they don't know who to tell. it's like, who do you talk about this with? Go down to your local pub and start talking about this. Most of the people are like going to forums trying to find groups, but there's a lot of people that are just too worried. A lot of the radio station people I've dealt with over the last year said the same thing. It's like, look, I'm nervous about running this show because the forums get, there's going to people get really worked up over this. So yeah, there's a lot of people I call it the flat Earth closet. A lot of people that know, but for me, it's in the millions.
So, well, if you could, would you say like 5%, 10%?
It depends. I mean, in the United States, probably more than other places. But I've heard from people all over. It's hard to say a percentage at this point. I'd be optimistic if I said 5%. I don't think it would ever be more than that at the moment. But I don't know because it's just it's so under the surface right now that people again why did Leonardo DiCaprio start talking about it? Why did B.O.B. bring it up? And that if some celebrities bring it up, that other people know, other celebrities know and politicians know. And I've heard rumors that there are politicians that know already and are starting to look at NASA in a different way. What was the second? Yeah.
What is your if you paint the picture in say 2-3 years, whatever time frame you want to put into it, what would you like to see? What would you like to see manifested? Reference obviously this information that's been brought forth and moving forward.
If it was me, I would like to see, because there's one man that could really do it easily, that could really take the reins on this thing, and that's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Because he's the face of science. Let's face it. All he'd have to do is come forward. This is what I'd want to see. That he had a moment of clarity, a moment of truth, and he realized the message is bigger than him and the money and the science that he has been backing for all this time. And he comes forward and he says, does his most humble presentation and says, look, for whatever reason, he apologizes, says this was for our own good, and that it was hidden from us because we weren't ready, or that the powers that be thought we weren't ready, or he could even pass the buck and say that the creator told them that not to release it until a certain date. They can make up any story they wanted to, but at that point, then things change. If it doesn't happen like that, then it potentially could do ugly. It could go ugly, which is the people find out slowly, and then there's a congressional subcommittee investigation into NASA because they spent a lot of money that didn't do anything.
Yes,
there's a lot of money there that people would it would be the greatest lawsuit of all time. Hopefully it wouldn't go that direction, but I'd want to see science take the helm on this one and say, look, we get it, we screwed up, and we're sorry, but here's the reason why, and then you could. I mean, the population would be upset, but you remember it's easier to get it out of the way early rather than to get caught in the lie later. If you confess, it's like you confess now, the punishment won't be as great. That's actually true in this case. Our parents always told us that, but I think that's the case here. So that's what I want to see.
Yeah. And do you think that would lead to other truths being unearthed? Obviously, because this is obviously a very major lie. If it's led to be true, or proven to be true, do you think that would then open that door to say, okay, well, these other things that were behind, closed behind doors? And
this thing would be so big that I think you wouldn't worry about the other ones as much. So, like for example, some people said, well, if this comes out, then how can you hide 9/11 anymore? How can you hide, some of the other ones, Pearl Harbor or JFK or just about any war that was fought in the last 100 years? You would hope that I think if they did it the right way, because if this thing came out, would people actually care about dealing with the other stuff? Because this would be so big that maybe but there would be that element of mistrust. So that's why I think science would have to come forward, not the government. You can't have Obama coming forward and saying it, because that's the first thing they would do is be like, really? So tell us about 9/11.
Oh, be easy.
Yeah, tell us about the Boston bombing. Tell us about all this stuff. What do you know? Or it's like, you know what? Why don't you open up Area 51 and tell us what's going on there? So we'll see. It's dicey. You have to treat it very gingerly, but I think it has the potential. I think it could be done right. So I'm trying to be the optimist, and it's either that or they stage an alien invasion and then blame it on the aliens show up and say, oh yeah, we were the one that built it, and then it just gets weird. Then it turns into a Twilight Zone episode.
Definitely.
All right, then, Mark. So you said that you're over in LA, yeah?
Oh no, north, same time zone, but up in Seattle. So north.
Seattle. So that's
okay.
north. Yeah, north of San Francisco.
Tom Hanks area.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right then, Mark. I want to thank you one more time for coming on to the Express Truth podcast. It's been a pleasure. We'd love to have you again in the future, to be honest.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to be here. Just let me know when, and I'll be around.
No problem, man.
When you want to cover some more of those clues, most definitely.
Okay.
Come back and give us an update.
Back to the Future, lie to us. Where's my hoverboard?
Exactly.
All right then, Mark. So take care and take it easy, man. We'll stay tuned to what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a good one over there.
And you,
no
man.
problem.
All right.
Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye.